1. Hello, Omniverse. I am Joe Bear.
I'm Zach,
And I'm Diego.
And this is Behind the Beard.
or lack thereof.
Welcome to this week's episode, where we hope that each of our conversation helps sparks an idea, a thought, or help your journey to be a better you as we are trying to do the same every week. Today, we get to start our conversation on the topic of presentations. And I just want to say welcome to our presentation series. And we're going to start off with communication simplicity. That's why our presentation series will focus on the art of simplifying communication. We'll explore different ideas to effectively connect with your audience, whether you're presenting in front of a large group, having a one-on-one conversation, or sending an email. Our series will provide you with practical tips and techniques to simplify your message and get your point across. Now, we really believe that mastering the skill of communication simplicity, you can enhance your personal and professional relationships, improve your productivity, and ultimately achieve your goals of communication. So let's sit back, relax, and get ready to learn how to communicate more simply and powerfully.
But first, if you hear my voice a little weird today, it's because I got COVID again. And didn't even notice until like a couple days ago.
Well, we appreciate you being a trooper and joining us. I know last week I was kind of tired and said we couldn't record. So you're a better trooper than I am. So thank you, Diego.
Yeah, sure. I think the boosters and everything, it does help, at least in my experience. Because like I said, I didn't even notice it that much until like my wife stopped feeling sense, and it was like, okay, this is not like a cold or whatever, let's go get a test, and tested positive. But so far making it out, so just my voice might twang a little bit today.
The year anniversary, or just about, when I had COVID, and I lost my sense of taste for over 6 months. So that was the worst experience ever. It just, and I couldn't, even during those end months, I couldn't taste it. Just randomly came back, right? I could only taste very sweet or heavily seasoned things, and it just 6 months of just eating without any taste. And people are like, you must like lost appetite, or that's a great way to lose weight. No, because you always are hoping the next meal will be the ticket. There's something will trigger you to taste. So you still have cravings, but just nothing. I never ever want to experience that again in my life. One of the worst experiences. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. But hopefully you feel better and it stays mild how it is.
That's
the other thing that it reminds me of and that had gone away and now it's back. It's traffic. Joe, can you tell us about your experiences with traffic?
So, yes, I've had to be on the road a little bit more. And thank you for that segue there. Normal life has returned. I think we're in a new normal, all of that. And, driving for my daughter's volleyball tournaments. Not to brag, but I mean, we were up in Baltimore and DC. We back-to-back weekends. I need to drive down to Orlando this upcoming weekend. And the worst part about it all, traffic is back. And working from home, I don't have to deal with traffic. It reminds me every time I go out there how grateful and thankful I am that we're a remote-first company and that there's these opportunities. Similar, Diego, to you, you're not feeling the greatest, but you're able to continue to work and not deal with traffic, not deal with all of the mess and all of this that come along with it all. But traffic is back, and it's the worst. Like, we've got to find a better way to do this. We need a subsonic train, personal flying machines, whatever it takes. We need to be putting all of our GDP into that.
Or everybody sign up for Omni and work from home, and then there you go, less traffic.
I'm 100% for that. What grinds my gears here? I'm going to grind my gear here a little bit. Is we do have the ability to choose our own schedules here at Omni, and there's times when we have doctor's appointments and we go to that. How is there always traffic, no matter the time of the day?
Different schedules, I guess. Just you're in the Matrix.
It must be in the Matrix, but I'm driving around, Raleigh, just outside of Raleigh, and I'm like, who works anymore? Why aren't you at work? Go to work. Get off the roads. This is my time to
And they're
be on the
thinking
road.
the same thing about you. Why aren't you working? Why are you here?
That's true.
You're in the same metaverse as they are. But I
Yeah.
will say, for me, and in the afternoons, if I have some flex or if I have a day off and I'm running errands and I look down at the clock and I'm returning back home and it's 4:45 and it's just that sudden dread and I'm thinking, why did I not plan this better? Because I hop on the highway or I'm pretty much on a highway where I am. I'm outside of Charlotte, but I'm pretty much on a highway with the exception of a few back roads. And it's like, how do you do this every day? I can't. Thankfully, when I did commute, when we talked about in the earlier episode, I had all back roads, right? So unless I got stuck behind a tractor, I was game. It was good to go. Maybe a cow went in the road a couple times, but other than that, I was good.
So, and then I look at my local traffic, and that's one thing. But then Northern Virginia, DC area, that's a whole other ball game of traffic. And there are so many people in huge metropolitan areas that that's just the norm, like you're saying. Now, Diego, I'm curious, what is it like down in Guatemala? What does those traffic patterns look like?
Guatemala City traffic is the worst traffic ever. Like, have like a 2 mile drive and it can take you an hour and a half or something. Yeah, it's a mix of issues, I guess, like bad public transportation, no bike lanes or whatever, or alternatives, and then security. So everybody drives a car, everybody goes out on the roads. It's like you said, everybody all the time. So there's no like peak hours or whatever. It's just all the time traffic. I'm looking at the window right now, and there is a little bit of traffic outside right now. Yeah, I always hear about it from Mariana, my wife, who works at a university, and she commutes 4 days a week, and so it's like, and she was lucky enough to be able to set up her own schedule. So she sets it for the times that are less traffic, but it's still hard. So yeah, Guatemala City is crazy is yeah, it's got a crazy traffic thing.
Yeah, I try to avoid. Well, we've talked about it before. If something can be delivered to me, please do so I don't have to go. Generally, my commute is about 10 minutes a day to the gym and back, and hopefully nothing in between in the evening or elsewise. Even on the weekends, I try to limit it. Just I become a hermit at times.
She'll try going on bicycle.
Did ride in 2 hours or 2 miles last night, and I am not accustomed to riding a bike. Let's just say that.
Do you care to share with the BTB audience, Zach, of why you're not a fan of beginning bicycle riding?
Just
He's like, no.
it takes a bit of adjustment to understand the seat. Let's just leave it there.
There we go. So I got nothing. I had nothing BTB appropriate to go from that point in time. So with that, I'll do a train wreck segue here back into what we're here about, which is starting our presentation. And so whenever you think presentation, you think, oh, I've got to get up in front of the class. Oh, I got to get up in front of a meeting. Oh, I've got to create a chart. I've got to present. But presentations can really happen from multiple different angles. It could be to a large audience. It could be, to two people across the screen, but it could be out to a big audience out that's actually watching. It could be on a one-on-one conversation. You're planning to talk to the bank manager, customer service department, or whatever to try to get your point across. So there takes some time, energy, and effort to put together a proper communication pathway. A lot of it starts with we as humans have a lot of great ideas. And, sometimes they're not always filtered down. They don't really make sense. There's a lot of great opportunities in the world where to learn from. I think one of it is like the Oreo methodology of communication and presentations, where it's like give them the good, fill in with the bad, and then give them the good. And I'm always like, why is it called the Oreo presentation style? Because I like the filling, not so much the
Yeah,
cookie.
isn't the good thing in the middle in Oreo?
That's what I thought, but that's always been the methodology I've been taught as
I have seen people just scrape their Oreos. I don't think those people should be trusted.
Let us know
That's
if you think the filling is good or bad at btb@oiteam.com. Winner will be entered in for a raffle. How about that?
and golden Oreos are the best, period.
All right. Are we going to go down the Oreo pathway? I think we just need to
But
branch
let's
off.
stay on
Go.
topic here. Sorry.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's for another episode. So again, as we're storyboarding it, we've got a lot of great ideas. We got a lot of great points that we want to put across. But then normally we go, okay, well, I've got this information, I got this one, I got this one, and then we kind of just look at it. That's how I used to do presentations. Is like boom, boom, boom. It was there, but there was no clear storyline arc. I didn't realize how much of it was important, how important it was to be similar to a TV show creator or an animated series creator where you need to storyboard it. And does this make sense here? Does that make sense there? What are your guys' take on storyboarding a presentation, whether it's to a large audience, one-on-one? How do you tackle that?
I think to me, the first time I heard about like the importance of storytelling in a presentation was one of the first videos from Simon Sinek. Kind of polarizing. Some people like him, some people don't. But I think this first video is actually really nice, which is the start with why one, and that made a lot of sense, right? It clicked really, really well because it talks about like how, for example, Apple starts their presentations with the why, right? Like with why would you need an iPhone, and then give you the specs, and then like then give you the process of how they made it, and at the end give you the specs and pricing and all of the details. While most of the times we will think it should be the other way around, like you want to start with the specs, then tell them how you made it, and maybe finalize it with why it is important. But I think that one gave me like a good idea of how to start to build up those presentations, to do those stories. And also there's this booklet, because if it was a full book, I probably wouldn't have read it. But I read this booklet called Storybrand something. The people that release it is called Storybrand, and they do talk about the importance of like movie scripts and TV show scripts, and how that's like the flow that we tell stories and that we hear stories, and that we actually pay attention to those stories when they follow that flow, right? So if you think about a movie script and first act and all of the hero's journey and all that kind of stuff, if you try to apply that to the presentations that you're building, obviously you're not writing Avatar, but your presentation is still a story, and it should have a plot, and it should have an intro, a plot, and then a conclusion.
Yeah, I'm not attending a 3-hour plus presentation. I'm sorry. Unless it's hosted by Taylor Swift, then I'll make exception here. But my take on it's similar though. And with that movie line take, and I add in being personable with it, right? Adding in relations, whether it's name dropping Taylor Swift or talking about golden Oreos, something that connects you to the audience to get that feel of you're a human behind all of this. But I've always framed it, or learned to frame it, I shouldn't say always, because I think this is something you constantly evolve and grow in, is starting it with how you got there, building, up to that peak moment in the movie, why that's happening, which is kind of the peak, right? And then as you're explaining why it's happening, you're slowly transforming your presentation and your story into what's going to happen next, whether that's a plan of mitigation, a resolution, or how you're going to maintain this go forward. So that would be how I push this for me on a day-to-day basis. What about you, Jim?
Yeah, those are both phenomenal techniques there to utilize. I love your point of hitting the crescendo of, yeah, this is not good, right? I mean, that's what communication, that's what business is always about, is there's a challenge, something went awry. I mean, it's always going to happen. So if you layer those steps up there, hit their crescendo, and then it really focuses into and transforms into that step-by-step actions of accountability, of next steps of what we're going to do to process this, to learn from it, to move on and make it as part of our standard operating procedures, so to speak. I love that. And I think I tend to land with that one a little bit more than hit it. Here's our ugly truth. Here's the good, and or vice versa. Here's the good. Here's the ugly truth. Here's the good. I don't know. I mean, I see the purpose of both to kind of soften the blow, but I like the phrase we use around here at Omni a little bit more. Bad news doesn't get better with time, so let's just hit it head on, right? If we just address it, and now here's the plan for it, let's go. Depending on your audience, sometimes you do have to soften that approach up a little bit, and that's okay. It's just knowing your audience and what really works there for that storyboard. And I'll tell you, for many presentations, in the history of my time doing presentations, I've taken 100 slide decks, and I've printed them out, put them on the floor, rearranged them, and said, what, this doesn't work, this is good, I think this flows a little bit better. I'm a very visual person when it comes to something like that. It's weird, I'm very numbers oriented, but I've got to have a printout. I can't just see it on a PowerPoint like slide reel, right? So that's helped me in the past, some good technique there. But really it's just knowing what I am trying to deliver, who I'm trying to deliver it to, and then start creating that storyline based off of that. I don't want to add too many layers in there. I'm not M. Night Shyamalan, where I'm gonna have like this hidden drop at the end of the movie, like, you didn't see it all along. It was right there in front of you. Like, my presentations will never be that way, but it's building up to that crescendo as well. But really it comes down to, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add in there to what your point is. A lot of it times it's situational, right? Time constraints is a big play. Your audience is a big play. Topic is a big play. Storyline is ideal, storyboarding, right? But there are situations where if you're at a higher level audience, I would say a fair amount of time, people just want to get to the point, get this off the list and keep on, right? So yeah. I would agree with what you're saying there.
Now, I got a question for you guys. When you're creating a presentation series, whatever it may be, do you write out, your ideas, or you just jump right on into PowerPoint or Canva or, easel, whatever the case is, and just start going?
Bullet lists. I think to me that's like my initial storyboard or initial plan is put in bullets whatever I want to say, and then start maybe doing what you do with when you print the slides and start building the story with that, with the bullets, and just make sure that what Zach said, it fits in the time that I have to deliver it. It fits with the audience, because again, like, if depending on who the audience is, you want to give this amount of background or less amount of background, or etc. But yeah, it's writing down the bullet points and keeping them as short as possible, as concise as possible. Maybe then I'll add stuff to the slides when I'm in PowerPoint or Canva or whatever, and just build it from there.
And how often do you go in, and as you're looking at those bullet points, you see, as you continue to build it out, you're like, one thing you probably thought was a big important why, or you're like, ooh, I love this slide. But then as you look at the storyline, you're like, ooh, let's cross that one off the list. How often does that happen?
It happens a lot, actually. And also with like slides or graphics that you're really proud of, and you're like, yeah, this took me a lot of time to build, or this data was so hard to get. And maybe at some point you realize, okay, this is not really doing anything for this presentation.
Yeah, no, I like that. Oh, go ahead, Zach.
For me, I don't write anything down as far as when I'm planning. I have a vision of some. I should back up. Most of the time, I know what the ask is, and I just dive in and make it work as I'm going through. I have a framework, and I don't. If I get into that point where I write it down, then I've found that I become too overboard and too structured, and my storytelling and presentation then lacks, because I become so uniform and formed that it's just death by PowerPoint or whatever the medium is.
No, so I mean, I think you're still doing it along the pathway of going through and reviewing. I've seen you work through some presentations before, and I think, even in my own mind, your mind is on first draft, you take it there and you're like, whew, I've got all of this out there, right? And seen some really heavy slides, lots of communication on there. And then you go back through and say, you know what, this can go. Let me simplify this message. This becomes a new slide itself. So I think you do that just by watching you work before, but you're just working live in the medium itself. And then really look at it. Is this aesthetically pleasing? Is this simple enough to remember and get the point across? do I have enough communication on this one? Or you're like, no, that was terrible. Why was I thinking there? So I think you do it, but you do it so fast within the medium itself. You're not old yet. I mean, your birthday is coming up soon, so maybe you'll have to start writing things down. But we'll see
Yeah.
how that goes.
By the way, I
I will
meant
go ahead, Diego.
by the way, I meant bullet points on your planning, not on your slides. Like the least bullet points on your slides, the better. And even if you can do it with no bullet points, that's the perfect slide.
So if we're
That's good.
going to pull this one out there, how many bullet points per slide is the best? If we have to put bullet points.
If you have to bullet, limit to 3 or 4.
And yeah, not make 3 or 4 that are 6 lines long. Try to keep it to 1 line, please.
Yeah, 1-liner, and you should have enough a visual alongside and enough preparation in which you can speak to that, and everybody can say. And Joe taught me this years ago. Past life is you're presenting this for somebody that's not in the room or not in the meeting, and so if they can look at that slide and understand exactly what you covered without being there. So that would be what I would say.
Yeah, that one's the powerful one, and I like what you said, Diego. And bullet point or no bullet point in front of it, if you have a paragraph there, that's far too much information for there. I look at it as if you cannot explain it to a 5-year-old on a PowerPoint slide, it's probably not in the right pitch, the right tone, the right messaging. It's not simple enough. You can have great stuff within the notes, throw it into the appendix if you need more, but it's got to be a clear, concise message there that I understand what you're trying to go through. It's highlighting, okay, here's this chart. We're going down. Our occupancy is going down, which is great, or whatever the case is. And I can have a bullet point over here and explains what this chart means. And then you look at it, go, great, I know what we're talking about, and moving forward there.
You bring up a good segue and good thought process that I thought, and I still struggle with. One of my areas with simplifying communication, whether it's in a presentation standpoint from a deck, or whether it's in an email, or even sometimes just in a Teams correspondence, where keeping the communication to the point, less is more, and don't drown out your communication or points or instructions, whatever the intent is, with more words and unnecessary information. That's a bad habit of mine, is I had too much fluff at times. And something I learned day in, day out of reviewing my emails, reading them aloud of, okay, you're adding in all these adjectives, you're adding in so many howevers and ands and buts and semicolons and all of this, and your language presents great, but what point are you getting to? And at this point, you're giving me a little essay, and that's me talking to myself, right? That's some area that I definitely still work through daily.
TLDR.
Yes.
But another thing, like not just simplifying, but also sometimes the easiest way to simplify it is to break it down, and don't be afraid to end up with more slides, because sometimes, like, in order to keep it as short as possible, you end up having 1 slide that you will have there for like 1.5 minutes. Sometimes it's better to have 15-second slides, but with concise information, rather than have 1 cramped slide for 1.5 minutes that nobody's actually going to read or look at. So yeah, sometimes simplifying is just breaking it down into chunks.
So I've been reading a book, fairly enough. It's right now, Why Simple Wins by Elisa Bodel. So as I'm going through this, it is pretty powerful in the fact that the human mind tends to want to make things complex, right? We're taught and then more, and why else, and here's all of this, when the real underlying issue is right there. When you look at the word clouds, when you take a presentation or you take a document, you put it in a word cloud, or you do a poll and you see what's there, it's why those are so powerful. It boils it down to 1 word. You got your main big word right there. You got little small words all around it, but that helps you uncover the fluff. It helps you uncover the true meaning of what you're trying to say, and therefore take a little bit more of a streamlined approach to go there. And it's attaining that simplicity mindset is the most challenging thing on a day-to-day basis, because we're all experts in our field, and I want to word vomit, so to speak. Got to be a better way to say that, but for lack of a better term, I just want to push it out there. I've got so much locked away in here. I want you to hear this, but then really when it comes to it, yeah, it's why I started a podcast. So I want to get all this out there. But then really it's coming down to, for a presentation, for an email, for a communication, it's becoming that chief simplification officer, that no matter what role you're in, you can work on that on yourself. And the more you start simplifying exactly what it is, it's easier to learn. It's easy to remember, because remember, we always want to complicate, and there's always all this stuff flying around, but simple works. And when you focus on that messaging of simplification, then your audience will remember it. And then if they remember it, it saves time. And then it's just all of these great things start happening, because complexity is your enemy. And, here's a great quote from Richard Branson. And forgive me if I butcher it, trying to recall it. But again, word vomit out there. Complexity is your enemy. Any fool can make something complicated. It is hard to make something simple. And when you put it like that, I'm really good at overcomplicating things onto a PowerPoint presentation, getting all this information out. It takes
just talking.
True effort to make it so simple it's powerful. That's where I lean on. Oh no, I wasn't done. That's where I lean on Diego to edit all of this out and to make it super streamlined for me. There's got to be an AI for that.
Hopefully soon. Yeah, cut all the fluff. No, that's also a really important principle in design, and not just graphic, but industrial product, any type of design, right? Like what you just said, anybody can make things complicated. Anybody can make a super complicated chair with many ornaments and many patterns and stuff and things, and maybe 8 legs so that it doesn't fall. But like making a 3-leg stool, for example, is something very complicated, because you have to keep the balance, make it well crafted, and do all that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's also important when we're telling those stories, when we're crafting those presentations, and it makes them easier to remember what you were talking about. Because yeah, sometimes you're just building the deck so that you go through that meeting and present and done, and that's it. But what you really want is people to remember what you were talking about, right? That's the point of presenting at the end of the day.
We both brought up something we're keyed in, whether it's the 3-legged stool or just overcomplicating. Joe, you said whether you know too much and you're just excited and you want to get it out, right? Get that point. But I think you can look at this from the other side of the fence, where you overcomplicate or word vomit in situations where you're not ready, or you're not prepared enough, or you don't know enough. I've been there. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I not stopping? Because I don't know what I'm saying at this point. I'm just trying to get to a point where it makes sense in my head, and I'm just going and going. And it's like the dramatic movie scene. I'm in an avalanche or something. I'm falling down the hill. A bear is chasing me. Nobody's stopping me. And the entire time, I just sound like a total fool. Maybe it's not that dramatic to everybody else, but in my head, I don't know how to stop it. And it's a word vomit, and it's because I'm not just keeping it to a point of vulnerability where I'm gonna have to take this one back. Or that is a great point. I will admit I did not prepare that note enough, but I'll owe that to you. Whether it's an email or something along those lines, that simple language of vulnerability, I don't know how to create that stool in that way, but I can learn and take that back in a visual aspect as well. That's just a whole different layer that I think is key in this simplicity conversation. Is sometimes we overcomplicate in a human nature. I know I do, like as I just said, because we don't know.
That perfect segue here. Goodness, because we do see it all the time, right? And you never want to be not known as the expert. You never not want to be known to be on top of it. And I think it goes back to our previous series there, where it's just being vulnerable and okay with saying, you know what, I don't know that information, but I will get it for you. Instead of, well, let me talk long enough until they believe I think they believe I know what I'm talking about, which does happen. But I think also on the converse side, if we're going to the antithesis of complexity and we go to simplification. And Diego, you brought this up because it just happened recently. IKEA directions are so simplified, but they don't really explain what you need to be putting in. So I can't tell you how many IKEA things I've built, and I love building those. It's like a adult Lego set for me. But you put the short screw in the long hole, or the vice versa, and you're like, you get to the end, you're like, I completely used the wrong stuff because the picture doesn't really tell you what I'm supposed to be doing. It gives you a general idea, but I'm still putting it together wrong.
We change the topic. My blood pressure is already rising just from. I don't have any words because all I can think of is what I said. Throw it, because I don't have any patience for that. And especially when the items look similar, you're putting together a stool or a side desk, and you're like, this leg is the same size as this leg. What do you mean it can only? Yeah, I'm heated. I need to step out.
And then again, it's knowing your audience, right? Because depending on who you're presenting to, those instructions might be great if Joe is the main audience, but if Zach is the audience, it's not. And you might want to put some more detail in it, or find a different way to tell you how to build it. Maybe make a short video, maybe explain which part is different or why. Maybe put a color sticker on each leg to make them like, this is where the yellow one goes, this is where the red one goes. But that's also part of knowing your audience, which is another episode in this series that we will deep dive into that later.
What a great segue. You beat me to the punch, Diego. I appreciate that one. We'll go ahead and take that as an opportunity to wrap this one up here. And so from a quote from our friend, well, he's not our friend, but he's got a real powerful quote here. George Bernard Shaw, the single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Always have to work on that communication there. And as always, keep #learning and let us know what you're learning about too. Please like and subscribe to our channel for more great content. And if you'd like to reach out to us about which part of the Oreo is the best, btb@oiteam.com. It's definitely not the golden Oreo, but we'll get into that one later. Join us next week as we start our next topic all about presentation series. Know your audience. I am Joe Bear, and for my co-hosts Zach and Diego, this is Behind the Beard. Omniverse to the moon.